Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey, everybody, and welcome to a live episode of the Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder. That is so cool. Like I've never done it where like I see the intro. So it's pretty badass intro. Thank you, Kofi. So today is really cool. My guest is Hannah Abad, and we've spoken like a million times. And we decided that, people talk about authenticity and so Hannah and I got into that, and then she said, "What if it's a trauma response?" And I went, "Oh." And then I said, "Ooh, that would make a great podcast. Let's do it live." And so here we are. So I'm going to let Hannah tell you a little bit about who she is, and then we are going to get right into the questions. We asked people to send questions ahead of time. And so we'll be answering live questions on, is it authenticity or a trauma response? So welcome. Hey, Hannah.
Hello. So good to be here with you. Always honored. And a little bit about me. I am a resilience coach. I work with high achieving, high performing visionary leaders to get them out of functional survival, driving all of their success from a place of stress and transferring that into deep and true strength and resilience, where there is mental, emotional, and nervous system strength, where they're not just succeeding in their professional life, but also in their inner world, in their personal space. So that is a little bit about who I am and what I do. I love coaching the phenomenal humans that I get to serve. I take a trauma-informed and neuroscience approach to my methodology and how I serve my clients and get them results. And I'm really excited about this conversation because this really stemmed and prompted with Iris sharing just from her deeply passionate place about knowing, we were talking about this in the realm of marketing, of just how important authenticity is in marketing, to really make your brand clear, to make your mission and your service clear, make it stand out in the marketplace and draw and attract the right people who resonate with who you are, who you are at the heart of your brand. And she was just sharing from her beautiful expertise with me, from her like clarity of perspective of just seeing when people think they're being so authentic with their brand, but then they're not drawing in the right people, or they're not drawing in people at all. And so, her just with her expertise going, maybe there's an authenticity issue here. And who wants to be called inauthentic? Nobody. That's me. I'm inauthentic. But really, and that's where I kind of spoke from my world and my perspective of, I so often see people operating so strongly in something that they think it's authenticity, but in fact, it can be a trauma response. And so they're not fully authentic and they don't even realize it. And boom, this conversation began. So I'm excited to go deeper today.
Yeah. And I think what the catalyst for me was people, say, "Oh, when I go into a business, I tell them what they want to hear, whether they like it or not." That's not being authentic. That's kind of being mean. And I think that that's where a lot of this came from. When I go into a business, I don't believe in negative marketing at all. So for me, it's very much like I go in, I say, "Okay, what are you doing here? You're doing a great job here," right? I start off with something good. And then we get on to the things that they need help with. That's being authentic. That's coming from a place of like true caring and not wanting to dominate, right? And I think that a lot of authenticity comes from wanting to dominate, or inauthenticity where they think they're being authentic.
Yep.
It's gonna get a little confusing, but I think you'll be able to follow once we get going. But so I'm gonna start with one of the questions, and actually, which one did you want to start with? I'm going to let you pick the one that you wanted to start with.
Okay. Let's see here. I would just kick this off with kind of the heavy hitter of how do I know the difference between my true personality and my protective mechanisms?
That's a good
And
one.
this is such a good question because, like I was saying, if your protective mechanisms are deeply ingrained and you've leaned into them for a long time, the line gets really blurry for us between like what is actually my personality and what is a protective mechanism, because anything we do habitually literally integrates into our identity. So just for a quick example, if I ran every day, I'm not a runner. Just as a disclaimer, I'm not a runner.
She's a walker, but
I'm a walker. That's right. Walking pads. But let's say if I was a runner, or let's go with another big cult following thing, CrossFit, right? Tell me this. If somebody in your life CrossFits, do you know about it? Yes. Oh, come on, Iris.
I mean,
If
I don't know anybody who CrossFits. So.
Let's stick with the runners. I have a lot of CrossFitters in my life. So it's like okay, let's go with the runners though. So runners, like they run every day. And if you meet them and you go, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself. It's they don't say, hey, I run every day. They say, I am a runner. It's an identity statement.
Mm.
They aren't born a runner. They claim the identity of runner. They identify as a runner because they do something, an activity running every single day. That is what happens with protective or survival trauma response mechanisms. If we do it every day, if it's ingrained, it actually becomes a part of our identity. And this conversation that we're having is like there needs to be an unraveling, or as I call it, a disentangling of, hey, that's a protective mechanism, and this is your actual personality.
Yeah.
So getting to the crux of how do I know which is which, very simply put, it's like if there is a thing that you do that you've identified as personality, that when you get really honest with yourself, if you ask yourself the question, what drives that action, that behavior, that habit that I do every day? This is the most simple distinguishing thing I can give you. Am I doing something? Is that action being taken to create something, or am I doing it to protect something? Because very simply put, in trauma response and a coping mechanism, our number one driving force that will influence everything we do is to protect. We go
Yeah,
into protective
that
mode.
makes sense.
And when we're in a sense of safety, which is where our true personality can fully express, we can authentically be who we actually are without a protective mechanism. Our number one thing that we do in our safety state is create. So we're designed to create in safety. We're designed to protect in survival. So if
Ooh.
you're like, oh, if I'm really honest deep down, like the reason I walk into that room and I'll tell them like it is, whether they like it or not, oh, that's not actually me being a truth teller. Like, oh, I know how to speak truth that actually helps somebody. It's to protect them from seeing my insecurity. It's to hopefully put up this facade so they don't question my credibility. Like, wow, she really took charge of that room. She must know what's up. And it's like,
Wow.
oh, I'm protecting myself from being seen as the fraud that I am. Maybe you're feeling imposter syndrome.
Mm.
Maybe you're scared of them being like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And so you come in so confident, so aggressive, so strong, not because you're a truth teller, but because you're actually protecting yourself.
Protecting. And that turns me off. Like if I'm in a meeting with somebody
Sure.
like that, right? I'm like, whoa. I
Right.
when I walk into a meeting, it's so important to me that I'm the least important person in that room.
Yes.
Um, because my client is the most important person. Guess who's second? Their client, not me. Right?
Service
I'm
centric. It's them focused.
yes.
Yeah.
Um,
And you
and
can do that when you feel safe. You can make it about them.
yes.
You're not in your head all about you. you can show up in that room and be focused on them, ready to create, ready to serve. And even like that pendulum. So something else you said when you were offering that example right at the beginning, when you opened, it's like there can be the people who walk in and are like, oh, I'm going to drop the truth. And there's no kindness. There's no service behind it. It's like
There's no
we can
empathy
speak
behind it.
truth with the heart to serve. Because he said, like, I start with focus on this is what you're doing really well. These are the things
Yeah.
I see you have it dialed in. Now let's look at the things that can be improved upon. And here's the thing is you're speaking the truth with kindness and care because you're there to help them get better. You're there to
Right.
help them market more clearly, draw on more clients, whatever the core objective is. But here's the other thing you're not doing. So first of all, you're not walking in like a bull in a china shop, like I'm going to drop the truth like it's hot. But you're
Right.
also not swinging to the other very common side of people pleasing. Because people pleasing would never
Mm-mm.
have the guts to say, hey, this could improve. The people pleasing is the yes man. Oh, it all looks great. You're doing fantastic.
Yeah. So
Nothing.
why do you need me?
Yeah.
That's
Why?
dumb. I mean, yeah, not
Exactly.
dumb. That's yeah, right. I mean, it's
And but people will do that. They're afraid to speak the truth because their protective mechanism is people pleasing. Oh, I want to make sure they're happy. I want to make sure they're happy with me. And then you don't speak the truth that actually serves the client.
mm,
So these protective mechanisms can shapeshift and look like a lot of different things. And it's about that regulated, safe, grounded place where you're like, I can show up authentically me and serve and in this case produce something phenomenal for my client.
yeah. And it was funny because um when we create proposals, it's in their branding. It's not in our branding. It's in their branding. Like everything is about the client,
So
for
good.
us.
Mhm.
And so and what was funny was um so I did this proposal. I'll keep it as vague as I can. And I went in, and before I did the proposal, we had our meeting, and I was listening to everything that they did, and they presented to me, which was hilarious. I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit back and watch what you have here, right?
Yeah.
And they were showing me where they were spending their money, and I literally
Mm.
looked at it and I went, "Oh, I can probably save you $40,000." And
Mhm.
I didn't even think about it, but I'm looking and I'm going, the way they're allocating their marketing spend was just not doing them, a good service.
Yeah.
Um, and so when I said that, they kind of looked at me and they were like, okay. And I said, no, like seriously, it's like you're doing this, this, and this. And I see why. I said, what kind of a return are you getting? And they were like, not what we'd like. And
Mm.
I said, okay. And I was in there for an hour and a half, and I came home, and we wrote the proposal with not us in mind, with what is
Mm.
going to be the best thing for them. How are they going to get the best bang for their dollar? They don't need to do everything all at once. And we
Right.
saved them $40,000. And we had the meeting yesterday, and I'm waiting to hear back. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that it'll be a good outcome. But one of the things that he said, which made me feel really good, was, I want to thank you for this proposal, and not just for the contents of the proposal, but for the way that you took care and you made everything about us.
Yeah.
And then one of the daughter was like, yeah, and not cookie cutter. And I was like, I will never do copy and paste. I will never do cookie. I am
Mhm.
not a cookie cutter kind of, girl. Um,
Right.
and so, being able to go in there, and you're right, having that confidence, I don't know that I would have had that 2 years ago. I
Mhm.
think if I would have walked into that room 2 years ago, I would have been like, "Oh crap!"
Mm.
Like, "Oh crap!
Yeah.
How much are they spending? Oh crap!" And this time it was just like, because I've done the work, right? I've done all of the work, and I know what it's like to be authentic. Okay, so we have like a bunch of questions here, and I know we could
Yeah.
just like keep talking. So, um, well, here's how about the oof, how do I know when I'm showing up from a place of truth versus showing up to prove something?
Mhm. This is such I feel like I'm gonna stay this whole episode because we reviewed some of these questions,
Yeah.
before getting on here, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, these are all so good." So I always want to give something super simple because this is a deep core topic. Like what I was just saying, like this is centered in identity and like that's core to who we are as a people. This is not a surface situation. However, um there can be some surprisingly simple ways to sift and filter, where you can test yourself of like, ooh,
Mm.
which one am I being? Am I showing up from a place of truth versus showing up to prove something? And one of the simple mechanisms that you can test in this, because this is going to be again, unique to each individual, because how you show up authentically, what is truly you, is genuinely unique to you. There
Right.
are, there are common themes across just being a human. Like in some ways, it's like we're deeply unique, but we're also not that special in the sense that people are people. Like we're going to share some commonalities of just how humans in general are wired. And with that, there's some generalities that we can lean into in order to test how it's expressing in your individual way, right? Some general rules that you can apply to your unique personality where you can go, yeah, is this true to me? Or is this coming from a place of proving?
Right.
And one of those mechanisms is testing the internal energy. And like energy is actually very tangible. This is not a woo woo, like how in the world do I, identify that? It's actually very tangible. It's very practical of going, that if you're out to prove something, you can test and feel like, oh, I sense pressure because proving comes from pressure.
Mm.
We externally
Mm.
express through proving when we internally feel the energy of pressure, which pressure comes from stress. And stress is tied to fear every single time. Like
Right.
stress is the socially acceptable word for fear. It's like what we all like. If I would say, I am afraid of this, people will be like, why are you afraid? I'm a little stressed about this. People are like, oh, yeah, stress. We accept stress,
But not fear.
but not fear. Because I mean, who wants to say I'm afraid?
I mean,
Nobody. Like that's vulnerable. So what we label in our mind as I'm stressed, it's actually covering up a fear. That's a socially acceptable word for fear. So when we're afraid of something, like I'm afraid that I'm proving often comes from I'm afraid that I'm not enough. Like somewhere in your story, you
yeah.
felt or experienced I'm not enough. And boom, your protective mechanism is I'll prove myself. I'll prove that I'm enough. I'll prove to them that I'm not the loser they told me I was going to be. I'll prove to them that I'm not the lazy piece of, POS that they told me that I am.
Right.
And so the fear is I'm not enough. This is just an example. Boom, the protective mechanism, the trauma response is I prove myself, and it's pressure that pushes us. So you show up in there and you feel this pressure. And I'm not saying it doesn't get you results. You will 100% get results from it, but not in a way that is actually service oriented. Because think about that. You show up in a room and you serve your face off, but from that place of, I have to prove it. Guess what? The problem is all that service is still about you.
Yep.
It's centered
100%.
on, I proved it. I just crushed it in there. And you get results, but it's not actually about the person that you're showing up to serve. It's about you proving something. Whereas true to yourself comes from this place of relaxed, because there
Mhm.
is no spring. You don't feel, there's going to be an absence of that pressure dynamic. So you go, if I'm feeling pressure, if I'm feeling edges of stress, if I recognize I'm like pushing, you're in the proving
Yeah.
energy. If you're in that, oh, this is actually genuinely who I am, there's a relax. I'm not saying you're not excited, that you're not bringing your A game,
Mhm.
but there's this deep calm. There's an absence of pressure of just, I get to, not I have to. Pressure
Yes.
is I have to.
100%. And
Yourself,
yeah. Yeah.
true authenticity is I get to show up in this room and see what I can do for them. I'm so excited. So there can be an excited energy,
Mhm.
but there's an absence of pressure, which means there's an absence of proving.
I think there's like a realness too. Like for me, it's like, everyone who's watched this knows, I was homeless when I was 19 and everything. And my family, not all of them, but like a lot of them were like, you're never going to amount to anything. And so as I was, uh, but as I went through life, it was that like proving thing. And
Yeah.
then when I got to the point that I was like, wait a minute, you know, I, I have I have an amazing wife. We have a wonderful home. I have a good business. I have all. I don't have to prove anything to anybody anymore. And I
Mm.
remember when I got to that point, it was so freeing because I didn't have to prove anything. Like, when I would go home, I would be like, "Oh, I'm so successful and my business is doing great." Now it's just like they're like, "How's business?" I'm like, "Great." It's not a thing anymore.
Mhm.
And going into rooms, right? And like getting into those right rooms.
Yeah.
Um, I am so comfortable with myself. It's, like when I'll go back to, this meeting. One of the guys couldn't be there because he pulled his back. And I'm in a band. Well,
Mhm.
Saturday night we had a show and I might have jumped off the stage into the audience just because it was like there was so much energy. Like I feed off of that. And I'm like 65 and I know people are like, "Oh my God, she's going to break something." Right. And I'm like, "I'm not going to break anything. This is like
I
amazing."
don't know if I trust myself to jump off the stage. I will say I'm like, "Oh."
It's like a 2-foot stage. It's nothing
Okay.
like a 6-foot. No, it was, like I wouldn't be jumping off a six. I would step down a 6-foot stage, um, but it was just the point of, you know, being comfortable, right? And I've been in meetings with people where on the other side of the room, they're not comfortable, and I know they're not comfortable. And I
Mhm.
have to sit there and not call them out because I don't want them to feel bad about themselves, but then I have to, and that wasn't this meeting, but I've been in meetings and I have to make that decision. Do I want to work with that person?
Mhm.
Because,
Yeah.
are they going to jump into the bully pit because they have to prove something because, they're, and there are a lot of times that I've walked away from things because of that, because I've done the work and I know the difference. And
Mhm.
when I see that in people, it's like, that's like a red flag for me because I know it's gonna get ugly at some point.
Yeah.
Um,
It often does,
from
unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, here we go. My confidence is usually just overcompensation. How do I tap into actual confidence that isn't rooted in fear?
Yes. So, in answering this question, and I mean, this is just more of my philosophy and approach, but I am all about getting to the root of things because you can treat things on the surface as much as you want. Um, and it brings to mind that phrase like it's just slapping lipstick on a pig. It's like,
I hate that, but I know what you
I
mean.
know. Me too.
Okay.
Kind of makes me cringe.
But
I'm like, ugh.
I know, but you're right,
But
it's true.
it paints a picture, right? Where you just
Yes,
go, you're going to have to do it every day. You're going to have to put that lipstick on every day. It doesn't actually shift anything. It doesn't make anything better. It just makes it appear better.
it's putting a
So,
mask on,
in that
right?
question, sorry, what was that?
It's putting a mask on. It's like you're
It
not.
is absolutely putting a mask on. And to
Yeah.
think about having to put on the mask of confidence every day, like
Mm,
it's exhausting and it's unsustainable. And it eventually slips or the crack happens in the
yeah,
mask. And then you're like, oh, you feel so exposed and terrified. And I've seen people crumble in that moment. You just
yeah.
watch it crumble and it's devastating for them personally. So I go like before trying to come out of the overcompensation, what is at the root of the erosion of your confidence? And
Mm,
I mean, this ties so heavily into the theme of what we already talked about. Genuine confidence does not come from anything external. It doesn't come from accomplishments because those can be taken. Like
yeah.
rock solid confidence is not circumstantially dependent. It's not
Mm-mm.
like, oh, I got the job. I have the life. I have the bank account. I have the successful business. Like that's all circumstantial, which can be gone. And the thing is, our nervous systems, speaking to how do I have confidence that's not rooted in fear? If your so called confidence is rooted in something that could disappear, that could be taken from you, then it's not real confidence.
Ooh, I love that. And
It's
and
just not.
and it's true because, we the things that we have can be
Right.
taken just like that. And then what are we
Well, and
left
then
with? We're
and
left with
with these
ourselves.
yeah, and with these high achievers, that is one of our kryptonites Because it's like you can achieve and hit those metrics because you are a high functioning, high performing, high achiever.
Mhm.
And I am not here to tell you don't be that. It's like, but we can do this in a healthy way
Right.
where you are not achieving, pushing, and getting results to not only prove things to other people, but to instill that confidence in yourself. And like that is a really faulty foundation upon which to build your so-called confidence.
Yeah.
So when knowing like if any of these things that have built my confidence can be taken away, here's the thing is your nervous system knows that. Your nervous system, even if your conscious, cognitive, logical brain knows, oh, it's fine. The nervous system is going to call BS all day long. Like that could be gone in a moment. And so your
Yeah.
system will not feel safe. So
You'll have agita and
the fear
ulcers and
will
all
continue to push
the
overcompensation. So if you
yeah.
go, how do I actually put the fear to rest where confidence is my baseline and I no longer need, because when you are genuinely confident, the need to overcompensate literally disappears. It's just, it evaporates, it's gone. So the question is, well, then how do I have confidence that's deeply rooted and not circumstantially dependent? And my answer to that is knowing and believing. So the knowing is here, the believing is here. The brain heart connection, and really we want to do it from here up. It's a heart up approach, not a head down approach. It's the knowing and believing in your innate worth and value. Because think about how powerful that is as an antidote to overcompensation.
Mhm.
You're just like, I'm good. I'm good. Like even strip away the successful business and the marriage and the home and all of that. Like let's go back to your homeless years before you built the life that you've created. And if I could speak to the Iris then and be like, you have innate worth and value. You have nothing to prove now as a homeless person.
Yeah.
You have innate worth and value because you are beautifully and intentionally created.
But
End of sentence.
you don't feel you're gonna make me, like, cry. You don't feel that, right? Like, um when you're in that space of not knowing where the next thing is coming, not knowing where you're sleeping that night, which was usually a
Right.
train, right? Like, not
Right.
knowing, it's really hard, and then when
Very hard.
will push past that, and not me, but, another professional who has maybe gone through something else, because as we know, our adult behavior is, you know, because of or it comes from some trauma that happened in childhood, or maybe not a trauma, but a situation that happened.
Mhm.
But I kind of feel like the the professional now, um, that has gone through stuff that, wants to be vulnerable, um, and wants that out there, right? They want, um, not like my story of homelessness, but they want their vulnerability out there. They want to see that they're not afraid to cry, and that they're not,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like they're not, oh, I'm trying to articulate it. That's what I hate about lives. Um, but it's like, you know, they're they're not afraid to be vulnerable,
Mhm.
but it almost feels like, um, performative, even though it's not performative, but it feels
Yeah.
like it's coming from a place of, Look at me, I'm not afraid to cry, I'm not afraid to put myself out there, but I still feel like shit about myself."
Mhm.
So how do
That's
they
that's still going back to one of these other questions, that is still proving. I'm gonna prove to you how brave I am. I'm gonna prove to you how vulnerable I am. I'm gonna prove to you
Mm,
how vulnerable I can be. It's you can still feel that pressure and that proving. And that's, I mean, I can hear it from a mile away. I know the signs, I know the signals, I
yeah,
can see it happening in a person. And I say this with zero judgment, with deep compassion of, ooh, you're still, because, and I said it, there are a million different ways to be in that proving protective state. That's still a protective mechanism.
yeah,
Like, don't see how scared perfect example on the vulnerability. I don't want you to know how scared I am. So I'm going to be so vulnerable so you would never think that I'm scared. Like, because what person can operate in vulnerability and be scared? You have to be so brave to be vulnerable, right? You've got to be so
Wow.
confident in yourself in order to be vulnerable. Probably the number one fear that's driving them, like, ooh, I'm terrified. And so I'm going to overcompensate by being super vulnerable so you can't see how scared I am.
That's
And
amazing.
you
I
can
never would have
feel
even thought that.
you
Wow.
you can feel the difference between authentic vulnerability and
Yes.
protective vulnerability. So for a very tangible real life example that I think people will recognize and identify as soon as I say it, perfect example of this is trauma dumping. You're like, I just met this person and they're all of a sudden telling me their deepest, darkest secrets.
I know I
They're
get
not
that all the
actually,
time.
and I say this with so much compassion, and when people do this with me, my heart literally breaks for them because I'm like, "Oh, they are
Mhm.
in so much fear and pain right now." When they trauma dump, I don't go, "Wow, they're so brave." I'm like, "They are terrified."
I hug people like that.
They
I
are
literally
trauma dumping like, "Oh, maybe you'll be kind to me if you hear how hurt I am.
oh,
Maybe you'll think I'm so brave when I'm so vulnerable right now." And they just over explain and they overshare and they trauma dump. And it's basically a protective mechanism of now that you see hear all that I've been through and you see how vulnerable I am, you won't hurt me. That's the number one thing they're trying to protect themselves from is being hurt again.
that's
So some
amazing.
people take the approach of stonewall. Like you're like, I can't read them to save my life. Like they are just oof. Same thing. I'm going to make sure you know nothing about me so you can't hurt me. Pendulum swing to the other survival
Right.
response. I'm going to overshare everything with no relationship with you whatsoever in hopes that when you hear how fragile and hurt I am, you won't hurt me. So same objective. You're just taking two very different approaches to protect yourself.
That is, I mean, wow, I feel like really because I never would have thought, when people trauma dump on me all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I meet them and then I know their entire life story and it's like,
Right. You're like, whoa.
yeah, like, oh, okay. Um,
We just met. That's a lot.
and
Okay.
I think the last person that did that, I pulled in for a hug and they were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, You need this." I said, I hope you're okay with hugs. Yeah, I probably should have asked permission first. Sorry, but you need this." And then they just melted into it because I was just like, but I didn't think of it that, they were trying to be so,
But think about how that was exactly while that was not the outcome from you that they were sharing in order to get, it was the very outcome they actually needed.
yeah.
That deep, scared, hurting person inside was like they were met with compassion. They
Yeah,
were
and
met with
because I've been that person and it's like, it sucks, right? So it's like, "Come here, let me, you know,
right.
like, bring it in because I just," but I
Instead of
never.
trauma bonding,
Ugh.
not you actually just responded with care and compassion. And that scared person inside of them experienced a moment of safety. You've gifted them with a moment of safety. Yeah.
I mean, and I think there are, and especially now, I will say nowadays, I see so much more trauma, um,
Mhm.
than I have,
Yep.
um, and I see people that are that micromanage things. They need to control everything, and I know that that's like a
Protective
100%,
mechanism.
right? And I called somebody out on it, and they were like, "That has nothing to do," and I wasn't doing it to be mean. I was just really trying to be like, "Your behavior is kind of like alienating people." And I just
Mm.
like, I didn't know I don't have the skill set that you have to where I can be, articulate it really, um I mean, I thought I was kind, but, you just have this really good way of putting things. There's no way in hell that I have that yet, but we're gonna be talking, I'm gonna get that. But, um, it was like, you don't have to control everything and everyone to get the outcome that you want because this isn't just about you. This is like a group of people. And I was, met with that's not true. That's not how I am. I'm not. And it was like, okay, because at that point, I'm not going to argue anymore. It's like, I
Well,
can only
and
do
like
what I
we
can do.
said, at the beginning, nobody wants to be called inauthentic or wants to like, oh yes, I'm inauthentic. you know, Not pleasant. It requires some deep self-awareness within a support structure where the awareness doesn't make you spiral into regret, shame, guilt. Oh, I've just failed and I'm a mess and I'm broken and oh, I'm going to be broken forever. Just going like, oh, the truth, like looking good, hard, and the ugly, like looking at it, the good, the bad, the ugly, looking at it through the lens of truth of, oh, that's right. I am being controlling. And if I get outside of remember, like when we're in a survival response, the only thing we can see is us.
Yep.
Literally, our amygdala gets high when we are in a state of fear. When we are under threat and we go into fear, amygdala
Yep.
gets hijacked, logic center goes offline, and we are in pure reaction mode. And we're very tunnel visioned because our brain says, I'm under threat. My number one goal and objective is what is the fastest, most guaranteed route back to safety. And so we become very tunnel vision. So control, protective mechanism. If I can control all of these outcomes, which probably came from an experience of chaos, of feeling helpless in a situation, of somebody else's decisions negatively impacting you in a way that you could not control. And so the protective mechanism, the protective response kicks in to survive of, then I'll just control everything and then everything will be better. So the heart behind it is not to control, which is probably why when you maybe tried to bring some awareness, it was rejected. It's like, no, that's not what I'm trying to do, because
Yeah.
logically that's not what they're trying to do, truly. But in the subconscious and the nervous system, the nervous system is like, oh, heck yeah, I am. I want to try to control everything so nobody gets hurt, me included. And
And
if I
it's so
can
funny.
control all the things and
Mm.
control all the outcome, then everything will be okay.
And what I find
But
so
it's all about
funny,
you.
yeah. And what I find funny about that is, um, and I will apologize to all the people that I was in a relationship before my wife. Um, I had to control everything. And when they let
Kept you
me
safe.
right? So when people let me control things, it was like I would roll over them, and it
Yeah.
wasn't fair to them, right? Um, and Heather, when, I was in that, frame of mind, we're together 23 years, so this is a long time ago, but, when I would try to do that control thing, like, she literally talked to the 7-year-old that was hurt. I was
Mm.
like, "You don't need to control me. Like, this is not a control." And you talk about healthy relationships. It's like I'm so blessed and grateful because, you know, to have somebody who can make you look at your behavior and go, "Oh, I don't need to do that.
I'm safe without it.
I am safe with you." Right? I am
Mhm.
safe without it. I'm safe with you. You're creating the safe space so that I can grow safe within myself. Because we can be safe outward, like you were saying earlier, but if we're not safe within ourselves, if we don't feel that safety, that's a mask as well.
I mean,
Um,
you talk about inauthenticity at its very core. You can be trying to control all the external circumstances, which is, I mean, the heart of what we're talking about. Everything that we're talking about
mhm.
is around everything external, proving, achieving, overcompensating. I'm looking at all these other questions.
We
It's
have to
all
get to
about the
another
external. I'm
there's
gonna
like so many, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna try to control all the externals to then make it internally where I feel safe, and it's like,
right.
it just doesn't, and that's why you'll never stop if you continue to take that approach as the solution. And that's where people hit a wall. They realize they just get exhausted, like, it's not working. They realize it's not actually solving the problem. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm still over delivering and over serving and people pleasing and overcompensating. And I still don't feel like enough. You're like, right.
So
Because
how do
you can control all these external circumstances as much as you want. But if you don't feel that safety deep inside, it is an inside out approach. Like nothing you create externally will fix the thing internally. You got to take care of the thing internally, and then it's the ripple effect outward. Gold.
so in business, right? We
Yeah.
we I think we make ourselves vulnerable, um,
Mm.
depending on the situation, right? Especially if we're, if we're, with a, a client that's different than we are. And I think that a lot of people feel that they have to make themselves small. They're like, well,
Mm.
if I make myself small, they're going to feel big and they're going to like me and then they're going to want to work with me because, and I think that's so wrong. If anybody at any time makes you feel that you have to feel small, or if you allow yourself to feel small, you're doing yourself such a disservice
Yep.
because you are you're amazing. No matter who you are, there is there's that little kid or even the adult that wants to be loved on, right? And I think that
Oh, that never changes. I don't care your age.
no.
We need to feel loved. We
Yep.
are made for being loved. Yeah.
So how does that translate when so like we have like all of these, questions and here there's, this one like I'm afraid that if I show the real me, I'll lose clients, respect,
Mhm.
or opportunities. How do I even begin to test the waters?
Mm.
And that's a scary place to be.
100%, and I'm gonna go super big because that is a big, like,
I
that's
know. That's why I saved
a
this one for
freaking
now because I knew
big
this was gonna
question. It's a big
it's like,
question,
yeah.
and the thing that makes it one of the dynamics that makes it so big is there's a lot on the line.
Mm,
Like, anytime there's a lot on the line, like, there's a lot to gain or a lot to lose,
it's
you
scary.
feel that. Like,
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I tried to be like, "Oh, it's not, it's not just be brave." Like, oh my gosh, like, I hate responses like that.
Mhm.
Sorry, it's like brings up a visceral ugh, in me because I'm like, "That's not helpful." Oh
No.
my goodness. Um, there is a lot that comes with that because there's so much on the line. Like when we're talking about as a business owner, like you have clients and revenue on the line, which can impact payroll, like whatever, however small or big your business is, it's like that's the difference between making payroll or paying the bills that month and not.
Mhm.
There's legitimately a lot on the line. So I actually love the tail end of that question of how do I even begin to,
Test the
where is it?
waters.
Test the waters.
Yeah.
So exactly this when you're like, okay, I am so done with whether it's playing small or hiding myself, people pleasing, shape shifting in order to keep the client, in order to keep everyone happy, in order to not lose the client. If I was to say take big radical action, your nervous system, all of you would hit the panic button and you would only run farther in the opposite direction.
Mm.
So the testing the waters, one of the practical things I love to do, knowing the neuroscience of it, knowing how the nervous system responds to it, knowing how it impacts us emotionally is going first experiment. Don't think, oh, I got to go big or go home. I got to commit to this. Like experiment because the brain goes experiment and there's not all this pressure behind it. It's like, oh, I can play with this. I can go, okay, because when we take, and this gets into, it's funny, I integrate a lot into my methodologies, but I actually love this dynamic within the project management world. It's called the Kaizen method. And the Kaizen method is this concept of creating massive change starting with minuscule steps.
Mhm.
So it's going the massive change, the shift into complete authenticity, being pivoting and being deeply aligned with maybe a new market, a new client base, where over time you're like shedding your client roster and you've rebuilt a completely different client base. Just for instance,
Sure.
that's really aligned where you're like, oh my goodness, it feels so good to show up and serve these people every day because I can be me and bring all of my creative genius to the table. I don't have to hold back or play small, whatever it looks like for you. When we take the Kaizen method and we go, what is the smallest change that I can experiment with today toward that end of authenticity, toward not playing small? First of all, your brain doesn't panic when you propose a tiny change. The brain's like, oh, it gets curious, like, oh, what could my smallest step be? It doesn't reject it because it's not this big, overwhelming, oh, I got to burn the ships, burn the bridges, light my business on fire and start over. That would be panic inducing. It'd be weird if it didn't make you panic.
Right.
But when you go, what's the smallest action step I could change? You're creating safety to try, to experiment. And you go, oh, well, what if in my next email, I said, this is, I mean, one of the most practical, simple things I can say. If you have been people pleasing the crap out of your clients, try this. In your next email communication, you don't say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It took me 2 days to get back to you. You go, thank you so much for your patience. Here's my reply.
Yes. Yes.
Experiment with that. And you go, oh, I didn't apologize. I expressed gratitude for their patience.
Yeah. I don't
And instead of
apologize anymore.
cowering in the apology,
Nope.
you are leading with gratitude.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thank you so much for your patience.
Right.
Energy shift. And you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, thank you so much.
Energy shift and mindset shift, right? Because you
Just
have
so your
to,
brain doesn't
yes.
panic. So when your brain doesn't panic neuroscientifically, it can come up with options. In panic mode, it can't think of anything. In
Right.
safety mode, not under pressure, it's like, oh, yeah, I could try this. And then you try it. And here's what it's important that happens. Your nervous system doesn't panic because it's not this big action. It's like, I can do that. And we
Right.
don't reject it. And then we do it. And here's what starts happening. You start taking new action and building a new bank of evidence because your brain loves to refer to previous experiences. So you start to build new experiences that your brain references and goes, oh, I did it. I can do that again.
Yeah.
Oh, I was brave in that moment. I was sincere. I was authentic. I didn't take a fear based action. I took a courage based action. And every time we do that, our bank of evidence begins to grow and we literally begin to embody it
Oh, I love that bank
from
of
a place of
evidence.
authenticity. It's not the fake.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate this one too. Don't freaking fake it till you make it.
No, that's
Just
crap.
take that phrase out like,
Right.
no, don't fake it. It is maybe doing something you've never done before, but that
Mhm.
doesn't make it fake.
No.
It's just like, I'm doing a new thing. I'm taking a tiny, tiny step of courage. And for today, that's enough. Let me try that. And then you do it again. And every time you do it, your nervous system feels safer and safer doing it. And then you get to start with authenticity, taking bigger and bigger steps of action.
Right.
And you look back, and this goes against our instant gratification society. You look back a year and you go, oh my goodness, a year later, I don't even recognize myself anymore. Not because you've shape shifted into somebody that you don't recognize. It's because you've actually stepped into who you truly are and you've been shedding the protective mechanisms.
Yes. And that is, oh, and I love that example because I used to be like, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't get back to you, when I thought I would. And now I don't. And I remember it took me, it was like a 3-month period where I would get ready to say, I'm sorry. And I'm like, nope,
You just caught yourself. Yeah. Look,
100%. You have to be aware, right? But you really have to be self-aware. Like you can't, you know, and I don't want to put like anything negative out on this, but for you to make those changes, for you to really own your authenticity and, when you're walking around saying that you're being authentic, really be authentic, you have to own your stuff. You have to
oh,
own, right? You have to own the stuff that
100%.
you're afraid of. You have to own the stuff
Ownership is key.
that's it, right? There were days where, like, again, I was a jackass. And it's like, okay, I was
Okay.
a jackass. I could have done better. When I work with my team now, I don't like, they're like, oh my God, I love working with you so much. Because if I have to call them out on something, if they've done something that they probably could have done differently, I say they could have done it differently, not like, oh my God, why would you do something like that? Or
Yeah.
why wouldn't you think? It's just that, hey, you sent this email and it probably should have said this. So if we can moving forward do this, um,
Mhm.
because when you do the work, when you realize the stuff inside and you do the work, you can come from this place of response, not reaction.
Right
And
there.
you come from a place of kindness and empathy. And that's where I think, for me, the biggest difference is, instead of feeling, and I was never like this, but I've had bosses like this where it's like, what do what were you doing? Like, and I was like, oh my God, I will never be like that.
Yeah.
Um, and I will get aggravated,
Well,
but
you're a
they don't,
human. I
right?
mean,
But
yeah.
I'm not gonna yell at anybody, and I'm certainly not gonna send a nasty email. I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna kind of go, okay, that could have been a disaster.
Yeah.
So how do I word this so that we don't
We
have
need to
almost
course correct
disasters anymore?
here. There's a
Yes,
true need for
100%.
course correction. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And 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 so, for like everybody out there, listening, um, you can send more questions after this. I mean, that's fine. But, I really hope that what this live does, because Hannah, you have such a way of articulating things
Mm.
that I do not. Um, and I think it's really important for people to know that, if you are coming from a place of fear and you are coming from, a place of trauma, it's okay, but
Yeah.
recognize it and work on it. And it takes work. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a month. I mean, like, am I wrong? Or, because I feel like,
Oh, no, not wrong at all. And that's what I'm saying. I like I feel a responsibility um to walk a careful line in this, in the world of work that I do, where it's kind of under this umbrella of personal development, leadership transformation, growth. There's a lot of language around, there's a lot of conversation around doing the work. And I am 400% for what you were just saying, like taking the ownership and doing the work. And setting realistic understandings and metrics and mile markers for what that actually looks like. Because again, we have an instant gratification society that we are conditioned into daily. Daily. Like we have microwaves, we have there's so many aspects of our daily life that are instant. So we are conditioned through just our daily environment for instant. So it's so important to say, it is not going to be instant. It's not going to happen overnight or in a month, because I'm sorry, a lifelong repetition habit of conditioning of programming can't just boop.
yeah,
It's not one of the things in our instant society that's going to be instant. And I want to say, like, when you take radical ownership and you dive into it, I also want to say this: it does not take 10 years of therapy. It doesn't. There are ways, and it's not about rushing it or being all about efficiency in our quick, quick, quick society. But I'm like, it is radical how you can collapse or expedite the timeline on your growth, your healing, your transformation when you commit to something beyond awareness. Like, you can't just be aware. I'm
right.
sorry. Awareness is step one, but it doesn't create change. You actually have to get into action to create change. Like, awareness does not create change, action does. So when you say, I'm willing to be deeply honest with myself, awareness, and then I am deeply committed to the deepest level of leadership of taking ownership over this and doing something about it. And if you stay consistent, it's one of those not sexy words that I freaking love. If you remain consistent, I'm willing to look at it and be honest and be aware. I'm actually going to take action on this and stay consistently committed to it. It will blow your mind how fast the transformation can begin. And getting to it's like when you are willing to abandon all the coping mechanisms, because humans are motivated by two things: pain and pleasure. We're motivated to experience pleasure and avoid pain. It is crazy how much work we will do to avoid our pain. So when you go,
Yeah.
my protective mechanisms are coming from a place of pain that hasn't
Yep.
been cared for. And instead of all the years and all the mechanisms and all the effort and energy that goes into avoiding my pain, I'm going to confront it head on. It will blow your mind how quickly the shift happens. They're like, I don't need the protective mechanisms anymore. I don't need these things anymore because I've actually taken care of the pain instead of finding all the ways to cope with the pain. So yes, it's not instant. Yes, it takes deep work. And if you commit to it, it can happen so much faster than you think.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, the key is really being willing, well, recognizing it, and then being willing to do the work to make the necessary changes. And it's not easy.
Absolutely.
It's not. And when you love yourself,
Oh.
you have to love all of you, like, because there's gray in all of us, right? There's black, white, and gray, and it is what it is. And those gray parts, you have to love too.
Mhm.
Um, and I will look in the mirror every morning, and all of me, and I look in the mirror, and like I said, I'm 65. A lot of things have changed, and I will
Just
look in the
keeping it
mirror and
real.
be like, I'll be like, hey, I mean, for 65, it ain't bad, but I'll be like, you know, "Hey, you, I love you. Go out and have the best day ever." And I mean, I love all of you, right? And there are days that I don't feel it. There are
Mhm.
days that
No.
I wake up. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh my God, how do you do it? You're this." I have days. Don't get me wrong. I have days where I look in the mirror and it's like, "Yeah,
Oh,
I love you. Go out and just go out and do the thing," right?
yeah.
Um, but there are days that it's hard. I mean, and I
Yeah.
think that's just life. It's just
Part
how
of
we
being
feel.
human. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not
Yeah.
gonna be perfect, and we're not,
Mhm.
not everything is gonna we're not saying that this is gonna fix everything.
Right.
We're saying this is a start, that if you're feeling
Right.
any of this, if you see yourself in any of these questions,
Yeah.
you know, start, do the work, reach out to
Right.
Hannah because she will help you. I'll help you in a different way, but she will literally professionally help you. Um, but uh yeah, and thank you for doing this today. I think it was really uh I feel like we should take our show on the road, and but whatever. It's so important that people understand where the behavior is coming from,
Mhm.
and that it doesn't always have to be that way, because I'm sure that there are people out there that don't, like, they do things and they're like, "Oh my God, why did I just do that? Or why did I just say that?" Right?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
if you find yourself saying that, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So any closing thoughts or closing words? And I know I didn't ask the entrepreneurship thing because that's not what this was about. This was really
Yeah.
about um, recognizing, are you being authentic, or are you coming from a place of trauma? And if you are, it's okay. And if you don't want to do anything about it, that's okay too. That's, it's your life. But
Mhm.
we're here to just say that, if you are feeling that and you do want to um, change things, that there are ways to do it.
Absolutely. I love what you said. You said like closing remarks. I'm like, I really think just how you and I both um kind of talk through synopsis of, if you're like, man, I'm craving not feeling like, I recognize like, oh yeah, there's so much pressure behind what I do, which is making me realize like, maybe what I thought was authenticity wasn't. The last few minutes of what we said, that's what say begin. Like, don't just stop at awareness. Go,
Start.
okay, so what am I going to do about this? Be
Yeah.
encouraged, literally take heart of, it does not have to stay this way. Just because maybe this mechanism kicked in because of something I didn't choose doesn't mean I'm at the mercy of it. Doesn't mean, well, I guess that's just the way it is. It does not have to be that way. And I'm not, this is, let me be so clear, it's not a pitch for myself. My number one recommendation in taking action and seeing changes, don't do it alone. It is, I walked so much of my personal road
Mm,
by myself, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. It is hard to do by yourself. We are wired for connection. Find healthy people to support you, encourage you, walk through it with you. Just knowing like there is so much peace, there's so much joy, there's so much you have to give, and it can come from such a peaceful, calm place when all this stuff is just put to rest. It literally changes how you think, feel, and function in every facet of your life. It's not exclusive to the professional space. It's all of it.
yeah.
And so that would be my encouragement, kind of my closing remark.
Cool. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your
Yeah,
day
my
today. I know you have things that you have to do, and I think we
pleasure.
should totally do this again. Everybody, thank you for hanging out live for
Yeah.
an hour plus. Really appreciate it. Share, like, subscribe. What did you think of this episode? Like, did this, did you glean anything from this? Did this help you? Are you in that mode? And if you don't want to share it publicly, shoot me an email, shoot me a DM. I'd love to know. So I appreciate all of you. And until next time, go out and light your fire. See ya.